Loner Money Rules. How Frugality Became Peace. Hey, and welcome to today's video in my unscripted and unedited challenge. And today I'm going to talk about my money rules. Now this is a topic that was generated for me, so I'm going to try and talk about it and we'll see how it goes. So I've spoken in the past about how I'm quite frugal in my life, but I haven't necessarily spoken about, the things I do to be frugal, the various guiding rules that I have imposed upon myself, all that I've developed over time, and how the loner lifestyle does really help out with a lot of these and have helped me develop these rules. Because when I look at a lot of my colleagues or hear the kind of things they talk about when it comes to their money problems and the kind of things they do in life, they're very much different from my attitude towards things. But I will of course say that none of this is financial advice in any way. I am probably the last person to talk to when it comes to financial advice. I would just say don't spend any money ever and you'll be okay. But of course that's not a good solution for most people. So yeah, take this as entertainment really, but you get to hear the kind of things that I do in order to be frugal in my life. So, first of all, I've got a number of spending filters before I spend any money. Whenever I'm trying to decide upon whether to spend something, I'm really not very impulsive in any way whatsoever. I'm almost the opposite of impulsive. So, when I think about buying a product, and this can be very helpful in a lot of ways, but also it has also been very detrimental, God, that's hard to say, in other ways. So before I make a purchase, I absolutely agonize on it over days and weeks, no matter how big it is or small. So, for example, a few years back, I really wanted to get myself a portable coffee cup, so one of those reusable coffee cups, because I was occasionally buying a coffee in the morning, and I thought, damn, if I just buy a portable coffee cup, a reusable one, make my own coffee on the way in the morning so I can walk to work with a nice warm coffee in my hand, then I'll spend less money on coffee. And these generally cost between £2 to £5, and it took me weeks to decide which one to buy. I was checking out all the various ones available, which one would suit my needs, would it be big enough, small enough, that sort of thing. And eventually I did buy one because the shops had almost stopped selling them. For some bizarre reason, it must have been a period of the year where people weren't buying these sort of things. And as a result, I almost missed out on buying one of these reusable coffee cups. So agonizing in that respect didn't really help me out. But when it comes to large electronic purchases, I always think a lot before I purchase these things. I consider all the different options. I have found actually it can be quite difficult when buying a lot of electronic things, because you've probably noticed this, but there's always the option to spend a bit more money on the next one up, and then eventually you mentally get comfortable with this and think to yourself, actually, if I spend a bit more again, I can get the next one. But I've come to the conclusion eventually just to get almost the cheapest one most of the time. So with my mobile phone, I got a new phone, and I was about to get the Pixel 10 Pro because there was a reasonable deal, but it was like £600. I ended up just getting the Pixel 9a in the end, which is a very good phone I found, and I found a very good deal on it. And even then, I almost missed out on this deal. It was a Black Friday deal. So while it sounds like I only have negative examples here, the fact that I do think these things through and I have no impulsiveness in me, I'm almost certain I've saved a big stack of money as a result. And I just don't have a lot of stuff because I don't buy a lot of things, because otherwise I have to go through this self-agonizing process. So next, I have a lot of very boring habits, I suppose. And this includes things such as batch cooking my food, not having any kind of personal transportation outside of my bicycle. So when it comes to food, I have no interest in fancy food, going out to eat, restaurants, that sort of thing. The nicest thing that I really seem to enjoy just the cheap things, the simple things. So the thing I enjoy the most is probably like Perhaps a Pizza Hut pepperoni pizza, but only when it's a carry-out deal. Perhaps a McDonald's like quarter pounder. I quite enjoy those, but only when you get the deal sent through your app. Because I can't believe the price of fast food these days. Like, I think it's almost £10 for a meal at McDonald's, which must be, I don't know what it is in dollars. I'd imagine it's around $15-ish, something along those lines, maybe more. But to me, that's outrageous. For that price, I could feed myself for a whole week with my legendary bolognese batch cooking. And I'm happy just eating that all day, every day. Although I have started eating what have I made recently? A lentil dal, and it's really nice. It's accidentally vegan, and it's even cheaper. So perhaps what I should do is some cooking videos for my batch cooking for anyone interested in how to have the most boring diet imaginable, but at a good price. And of course, I talk about this at length, but I've given up on drinking. So the fact that I just drink sparkling water instead of any alcohol has most certainly saved me a lot of money. One thing I do that's different to a lot of my colleagues now. So I'm always referring to my colleagues because I don't really know many people. I'm a loner, so I don't really have any friends or anyone else to talk about in this respect. I guess I can talk about people I knew at university, but that was over 10 years ago now. They might be doing things differently. But all of my colleagues seem very comfortable with getting into debt. And this is not things like mortgages, which I think is a productive debt in some respects. It could perhaps be argued that it isn't necessarily a good thing to get into because there's the benefits of renting. You can move a lot more freely. The landlord looks after the house. You haven't got to fix your toilet. The landlord will do it. But a mortgage is considered somewhat of a productive debt in that respect. You're sort of have an asset. You have something, and then you can sell that thing. But when I talk about debts, I mean massive credit card debt to go on holidays, payday loans to get takeaways, that sort of thing. Car loans for cars that they immediately don't like anymore and want to get new cars somehow. These electric vehicles that a lot of people have all of a sudden picked up. I wouldn't be able to sleep if I had massive amounts of debt. When I bought my house, I was down to my last £20,000 in my savings, left, and even that was stressing me out. It might have been because it took me such a long time and so much effort to build up all those savings. So there was that emotional aspect of all of a sudden my money being gone, and it wouldn't have been gone if I just stayed in rental accommodation. But I've gotten over that and, of course, rebuilt it now over the years. But, God, the concept of going into debt over anything other than a house is something I wouldn't consider. I suppose my student loans as well, but that's a bit different in the UK to other countries, is my understanding. It's more of like a weird graduate tax, the way it works, that eventually gets written off. And I don't think I'd have been able to afford to go to university without these government student loans. But yeah, that's debt. So what else have I got to talk about? So one thing is about how frugality pairs quite well with solitude as a lifestyle. So moving on from the restaurants and such that I was talking about, the fact that I don't really go to restaurants or anything, and I'll always turn down that sort of thing if there's a sort of social thing going on at work. So quite often people want to go for food, go for Christmas meals and that. And the price of those, they've got so expensive, and I would say the quality of the food has just gone. It's just gone down so much. So let's say you've got a £30 meal. Like, the best thing on the menu is perhaps a very small steak, and usually there's an additional price for that. Yeah. So when it comes to that sort of thing, going out for drinks after work, like, the price of a pint of beer is absolutely absurd. And of course I don't drink anymore. If I were to just have like a Coke or something, even that would be a few pounds, and for that I can just get a lot of sparkling water. Yeah, I know that makes me very antisocial, and if I were to keep banging on about it to people, I have found they do get annoyed, so I just politely decline these things, like social events, and status things as well, to be honest. So let's say one thing a lot of people I know have got into recently is this meal delivery plan. So Gusto, I believe it's called, the one they use. There's HelloFresh, all that sort of thing. The various other trends, so those Stanley Cups, all kinds of nonsense like that. While I'm aware of these things, I have no interest whatsoever in following these trends, even though all my colleagues seem to do so, and they're all people in their late 30s and early 40s. So I guess it's something that a lot of people never grow out of, like the accumulation of these things for status that they can then post online and talk to their friends about. The amount of just talking about absolute inane nonsense in the office is, well, it's tough. I have to sit and listen to all of this stuff. And yeah, I think I'll finish on saying that while I do have all these habits to save money and be frugal, there are things that I will spend money on. And some people might not do this. So this is like my subscriptions, for example. There are some things that I do have subscriptions for specific reasons, and I try to always limit it. So number one is my contact lenses. I do like to be able to see, and I don't like wearing glasses. They're fairly expensive, but like the ability to see like to the side, for example, to see clearly, to not have to wipe your glasses all the time is quite nice. The next one is, of course, the gym. But I do have the cheapest gym membership I can find off-peak, so it's something like £15 a month, which isn't very much, I'd say. I've seen some gyms which are like £40, £50, £60 a month, maybe even £100 a month. Like, that would be crazy to me. All I need is a squat rack and a rowing machine, and then I'm happy. Other subscriptions include Amazon Prime, which, thinking about it recently, I'm not sure I use it that much, so I'm going to have to weigh that up over the cost of things. The amount of things I really order. Maybe I need to buy more stuff and be less frugal in order to use my Amazon Prime more. And also YouTube Premium, because I just cannot stand watching adverts. On my main account anyway, my personal account, I accidentally clicked on a video on this account, which doesn't have YouTube Premium, and the adverts are so obnoxious. So in some ways that's actually motivating me to put more effort into videos in the future to make them worth watching. I don't want people to have to watch a load of adverts to only be disappointed by my low quality videos, my low effort videos. So this is going to be acting as a motivation factor. And fair play, like if the viewers are, or if people are sitting through those adverts, they deserve to see something worthwhile, something that isn't just a load of nonsense, something that's going to entertain them and meet their expectations. Another thing I spend a lot of money on, or I would happily spend money on, is my health. And that is because I've had a few issues recently, and every single time in the last decade almost that I've had to rely on the NHS, which is our free healthcare service, they have let me down massively. The wait times are so long, sometimes a year or 2 years for a surgery, and every single time I've actually gone through with this long wait and surgery, they've let me down massively. So I'll talk about it in the future, but I had this condition and I had to have multiple surgeries. Every single time they made the condition worse, and then I'd have to wait a long period of time, have daily visits to the nurse to treat the condition, and eventually I just couldn't take it anymore. I took the hit, spent £6,000 I think it was on some surgery, and that didn't cover all the other consultations, the accommodation, the travel and all that. So it was about £10,000 all in to have this condition treated by a private doctor, and within 2 weeks it was completely fine. I was completely fine. I met a world leading specialist in this condition. He cured me, and now I get to live a normal life again after all the butchery of the NHS. It's the downside of this socialised medicine. They want to treat you in the cheapest way possible, and make you wait. So I will always spend money on health where I can, I've learned. And I suppose the last one is any skills I want to learn. So I am fairly interested, possibly in starting to learn a language soon, as I think that's a productive use of my spare time. It all depends if I get onto this AI apprenticeship I keep banging on about, but we shall see. I guess I've got a plan then in that respect. I have found that now I'm doing more things compared to my alcoholism life, that the time is starting to slow down a bit again for me. I was getting a bit worried that I was losing all my time just sitting around doing nothing, but now I have things to do, like these videos I enjoy making, and I also have the possibility of learning a skill in the future. So, yeah, this ended up a bit of a rambly video towards the end, a bit sentimental perhaps, but I had a fun time talking about these things. I do wish I had more people to talk to, let's say, money about. It's just something you don't really talk about, at least in the UK and office culture. People keep these things to themselves. But, yep, perhaps in the future I can talk more about these things. For entertainment purposes only, of course. But thanks for listening to this video, and I shall see you again tomorrow.